Hi guys, my name is Mira and I'm 23 years old. I graduated from George Washington University in DC a couple years ago. My major is in public health and my minor was in dance. So now I've been with the foundation for a couple of years and I'm really excited to be sharing my passion for public health with you guys because we're kind of all in the same age group when it comes to HIV/AIDS. So it means a lot to me to be here with you today.
Hi, I'm Andrew Kong Knight. I'm from Hayward High School. I'm an art instructor there, and this contest is a very powerful one because it helps save lives, people with AIDS. It's an opportunity for students to raise money for people who are dying from AIDS. Class, this is a opportunity for you to express yourself on the AIDS disease and opportunity for you to win money.
Okay, so I need you guys to help me out with this next part. We're going to do a simulation. So if I can get all of you to come up to the front of the class, I'm going to hand you each a test tube and then give you some instructions. Okay, so don't shake it or anything. Just hold it in your hand. Okay, here you go. So what I want you to do is, I'm going to give you 3 or 4 minutes, and then I want you to swap the fluids with each other, okay? Now, the thing is, after you finish swapping, I want to make sure that however much fluid you have in your test tube right now is what you end with as well. So don't have it be like, very little or full. So make sure that you have kind of the same amount. And go. Don't be shy.
How many people can you swap with before you get HIV?
Yeah, I heard this was like a cancer.
Don't get too excited now. 20 more seconds. Okay, so once I put the reagent in, put your stopper back on and swish it around a little bit.
I thought I couldn't get it because I only swapped with girls.
Oh gosh.
Okay, so put your stoppers on and swish it. Okay, those of your vials that turned bright pink, raise them in the air. So that's 4 of you. Okay, so for purposes of the simulation, you guys have the HIV virus. So the point of it is that you don't know whether you got the virus from the first person you swapped with or the 7th person you swapped with. So the face of HIV is indistinguishable. You can't tell who has it. It's the person next to you or the person across the room. So that's why you have to practice safe sex each and every time. So yeah, thanks guys for participating. Okay, so those of your vials that turned pink, I said that you guys have the HIV virus. So you already know that the disease doesn't discriminate by race or gender or age or ethnicity. So human immunodeficiency virus, it's the one that actually causes AIDS. So first you're infected with HIV. AIDS is the full-blown disease that happens much later on if you continue to have the virus without getting treated. It attacks your immune system's T cells, so it weakens your body's entire immune system. So if someone who doesn't have HIV gets pneumonia, say, they can be cured from that. But if someone who has HIV gets pneumonia, it's a lot more dangerous because their body's entire immune system has been weakened. So many cases, people who die from HIV or AIDS actually die from common diseases like a cold because their immune system is that weak. Okay, so next slide. Okay, so how is HIV transmitted? So a lot of us, especially in high school and in college, we have kind of different assumptions about the way HIV is transmitted, basically, things we've learned from our family, from our friends, online. So I'm going to bring up different modes of transmission up here, and then as a class, I want you to yell out whether you think you can get it, so yes or no. Okay, so here you go. Mosquito bites. No. And oral sex?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So mosquito bites, no, because they have a different kind of molecular structure to their blood than we do in humans. So even if they, bite someone who has HIV and then they bite you, they're not going to transmit that virus because it doesn't work with their body system. Oral sex, actually, definitely, I thought so in high school and college too. But there's actually only 3 known cases in the entire world where people claimed they got HIV because of oral sex. But most doctors attribute that to probably other sexual behaviors that happened in tandem, and that's why they reported it as oral sex. But you cannot get HIV through oral sex, but STDs are obviously possible. Kissing.
No.
And mother to child?
Yes.
Yay. Okay. Next one. Unprotected sex.
Yes.
What about tattoos and piercings with sanitized needles?
No.
If they're unsanitized, obviously, yes. But with sanitized needles, no. That's why it's really important if you decide to get a tattoo or a piercing that you do it in a really legit place that has a good license, etc. Sharing needles?
Yes.
Being coughed or sneezed on?
No.
Okay. Good. Next. What about saliva, tears, and sweat?
No.
And using the same toilet?
No.
Okay, next please. What about sharing food, water, and utensils?
No.
Bodily fluids to an open source?
Yes.
Okay. A resounding yes. Okay, the next point, please. So you can only get HIV if infected blood, semen, or vaginal fluids enter your body through an open source. So basically what I want you to take away from this is that in any of these cases, like being coughed on or sneezed on, saliva, tears, and sweat, there has to be traces of blood in the bodily fluids in order for the disease to transmit. So if you're kissing someone, you're not going to transmit the virus unless there's traces of blood when you're kissing them, right? So even if you get coughed on or sneezed on, if there's no blood in those fluids, then you're not going to get the virus. So that's really important to take away from it, which is why usually in things like oral sex, it's not transmitted. Yes?
Is it just the breast milk, or is it 100% positive the baby will get the disease if the mother is HIV positive?
No, that's a really good question, actually. So if you are HIV positive, you can still definitely have children. There are medications now that we can give expectant mothers along with their prenatal vitamins that will pretty much, if there's a 98% chance your child will not have HIV. But it needs to be like the moment you know you're pregnant, you need to start those medications. So the reason that it's so rampant in developing countries is because A, the mother doesn't even know she's HIV positive, and B, she doesn't know when she's actually pregnant until much later on in the pregnancy. So there are ways to prevent it, but those things are kind of only over here and in Europe versus in developing countries. Okay, why should I care? So at our age, kind of the scariest thing that can happen from unprotected sex is an unplanned pregnancy. And that's still as scary. But why should HIV be, kind of on your mind just as much as an unplanned pregnancy should be? So it's estimated that people under 25 make up half of the new HIV infections every year in the United States. So every year in the United States, there's 50,000 people who are infected with HIV, new infections. So imagine that there's 25,000 of those every year that are expected to be in people our age, under 25. 60% of the new cases are in teenage girls aged 13 to 19, which eradicates the whole theory that it's only a gay man's disease. It's not. For our risk group, heterosexual sex is the primary mode of transmission for the disease. 60% of the new cases are in African American teens, aged 13 to 19. Now, this statistic kind of tells you more why. Although black teens represent only 16% of US teenagers, they account for 69% of the new AIDS cases reported in teens in 2005. So it's not, like I said, the disease doesn't discriminate by race, but the fact that minority populations are already, like I just said, minorities in the United States, the statistics are alarming for how much it's exploding within the people. 25% of the new cases are in Latino American teens, aged 13 to 19. And finally, 1 in 4 people with HIV in the United States don't know they have it yet. So that means there's a lot of people walking around who have the disease who don't know, which is why it's most important to get tested all the time if you're sexually active.
Why is it just 60% girls? Is it just harder for guys to get it?
No, that's not why. It's just that with this age group, heterosexual sex, like I said, is the primary mode of transmission. So more girls our age are getting infected with the disease. It's not because it's harder or easier, because in other age groups, more men are affected than women. But for our age group, more teenage girls are affected. Okay, so those of your vials that didn't turn pink, it probably felt good on some kind of subconscious level that, oh, I didn't get it, right? I mean, even though it was just a simulation. So why do you think, what are the ways you think you can keep that statistic out of your life and out of those of your friends? What are ways to protect yourself?
Practicing abstinence.
Abstinence, okay. Anyone else? Yeah. Using a condom. Anything else? So you're right, abstinence is the only 100% protection against HIV/AIDS, STDs, and pregnancy. But that's a perfect world, okay? So moving forward, I can't come into your lives and decide or assume whether you are using drugs and alcohol or not. But I do have to tell you that if you are, obviously your perceptions of the world are different when you're under the influence. And that's when things like sharing needles and unprotected sex become just not like it becomes easier, but it's something that you're more exposed to. So if you are, be really careful. Also, do not have unprotected sex. Wear a condom each and every time, even if you're with the same person in the same time. Wear it each and every time. Condoms and dental dams are the only forms of birth control that protect against HIV and STDs. All other forms of birth control that women can use, pills, the patch, the ring, sponge, whatever, do not protect you against HIV/AIDS or STDs. I had a question in another class where a girl asked me, well, if I'm using birth control and condoms together, doesn't that protect me 100%? No, nothing protects you 100%. But you can be as safe as possible using condoms each time in terms of HIV and AIDS. Now, if you're also trying to protect yourself from pregnancy, obviously birth control will help. Okay, obviously respect yourself and others by making sure that as an adult, when you decide to start having sex, both you and your sexual partner have been tested. Now, I think in our age group, it's not an offensive question anymore to ask for someone's test results before you decide to have sex with them. It shouldn't offend them. It should just mean that you respect them more and you respect yourself more, that you want to be completely safe. So if someone gets offended and all like, oh my God, I can't believe you asked me that on you, then they probably don't really care about you as much as you think. And you can get HIV even if you're a virgin and it's the first time you're having sex. Because like I said earlier, 1 in 4 people walking around the US have HIV and they don't know it. And you don't know who they've been sleeping with. My colleague Jim likes to say, which I don't really like this phrase, but it's true, if you sleep with one person, you're sleeping with everyone they slept with. So you need to make sure that you respect them and yourself by getting tested. So getting tested is the most important. Okay, should I get tested? So these are just kind of a lot of different situations that if you or your friends or anyone you care about have been in, you should urge them to get tested. If you're sexually active at all, if you've ever had any kind of unprotected vaginal, oral, and or anal sex without the use of a condom, if you've shared or reused needles to inject drugs or for body piercing, tattooing, etc., if you've ever been pregnant, obviously, if you're unsure about your sexual partner's behaviors, or your sexual partner, past or present, has ever tested for HIV. So that's obviously something you guys might not know at this age, but I know for high schoolers it's a big deal. You don't know where they've been, where you've been, etc., and in college, so that would be a good reason. If you've ever had certain illnesses growing up, even like TB, hepatitis, or any other kind of STD like herpes or syphilis, chlamydia, gonorrhea are also added to that, I would get tested. Also for women, if you've ever had HPV, I would also get tested. This is a really great resource that I want you guys to hang on to. It's called hivtest.org, and basically you can go into the website, put in your zip code, and it'll list all these testing resources for people our age. And you can check what kind of resource you want. Like, I want a testing site that is free, confidential, doesn't ask for parental consent, etc. So if you go to this site and put in your zip code, it's really, really helpful. And you can also refer your friends to the site. So the bottom line basically is to get tested if you begin to be sexually active or if you already are. So if there's any questions.
Is it possible for someone to not get HIV if they have unprotected sex with someone who is HIV positive?
Yes, if you use a condom each time. And I do know there are partners who are, one is HIV positive and one is not, and they do get tested regularly, and one person has not gotten the disease. But that's because they use protection each time. It's obviously at your own risk to do it unprotected. I don't know if that's something you would want to take on personally, but it's up to you. But if you're safe every time, it's the same thing with genital herpes. There are a lot of people who have herpes who date people who are not. But if they're safe, you won't get the disease.
I have a question.
Andy.
If I have HIV, how soon can it be detected?
Okay, so usually if you have exposure to HIV, there's a certain amount of time it takes in the body for HIV antibodies to develop so that a test can detect it, and that's usually 2 to 3 weeks. But it's recommended that you wait up to 3 months for those antibodies to be detected.
So what you're saying is I could be HIV positive in the first 3 weeks, and it wouldn't be detected if I got a test, but 3 months later it could be registered as positive.
There is a study that is going on in the US where within 72 hours of having unprotected sex and you think you might have been exposed to HIV, they'll give you these HIV medications that reduces the risk of transmission by 81%. But that's only if you're coherent enough to know, oh, I might have been exposed to this, I should get myself to a clinic. But to answer your question, usually within 3 months, the antibodies have developed and the test can detect for it. In very rare cases, it takes up to 6 months in some people's bodies. So it's suggested that you get tested every 3 months. But good question, actually. Because a lot of people think it enters your body and it's there right away, but it's not. Very kind of weak symptoms might be like if a cough is lasting like a whole month, if you're getting persistent diarrhea, maybe pneumonia, maybe an illness that you think you should have already gotten rid of, but it's still persisting in your body. Because like I said, HIV weakens your immune system. So that's probably why it's still holding on. But there aren't like blatant symptoms of HIV per se.
Is it true that the disease came from a monkey?
Yeah, that's what they are predicting. There's obviously no like hardcore, but they think that it was originally in a monkey, and that's how it got transmitted into humans.
Why is AIDS so hard to treat?
There are people working on the cure, obviously. There's a lot of money going into research, but it's not like in another class I heard, like, oh, is it like a cancer that if you treat it with enough drugs, you can fully eradicate it from